understand the mindsets and the behaviours and the skills that really will support them on their journey. Oops. So a little bit more about my Woolworths journey, because I think this is helpful in terms of understanding and relating to hopefully what some of the people on the webinar today will have experienced or know somebody that's kind of gone through. So I started off as a Saturday girl in Woolworths. I was 15 years old, and my first job was on the pick and mix counter. So it was a store where we had a separate pick and mix counter, a separate till, and I loved that job. My desire, my remit was just about keeping people happy, serving customers, delivering the role that I've been trained to deliver, and it was great. I knew exactly what my job was, and once I'd been doing that role for a few months, I got promoted to be a Saturday supervisor. So I then had a full-time Saturday job, which was excellent. And I predominantly dealt with refunds, customer complaints, managing and planning staff breaks. And again, it was great. It was very simple. It was very clear. I knew what I was doing, and I loved it. And then when I got to 18, I had the opportunity to take a year off before going to university, and I took that opportunity in Woolworths because it was lots of extra hours. It was a place I was very comfortable with and I really enjoyed working. So I worked all the hours God sent for the summer holidays, and whilst we were out on that kind of sabbatical, if you like, we had a restructure and they introduced the position of assistant manager, and I thought, hey, I'll go for that. I can do that. It's got to be more money. It's got to be fun. It's great. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, and I've got a year to kill before I go to university. So I applied for it, not thinking that I would get it at all, because I had absolutely no work experience, job experience other than the Saturday role, but I got it. So at 18, I became assistant manager, and that was really when my first learning curve, or massive learning curve, appeared. So at that point, I was 18. Other than the Saturday kids, everybody in the store was now older than me. And everybody in the store that previously was my boss or had been more senior than me now reported into me. So that was a bit of a kind of like, oh, not quite sure what this is about. We were also, unbeknownst to us at the time, in a store that was underperforming. So I was running around quite happy, thinking that the store was great and everything was running as it should. We were doing a great job. And then very suddenly, after I became appointed, we got a new store manager. And that new store manager essentially informed us that the store was underperforming. We weren't doing the level of sales, taking the level of profit. We had a high level of shrinkage or loss from either cash loss or stock loss from various causes. We discovered there was a whole load of internal theft going on, and just all the systems processes within the store were not working or broken. So he came in, set a load of new expectations, drew the line in the sand, and myself and the other assistant manager were expected to be with him on that journey and kind of turn the store around, including the behaviour of the team of 200 people in that store. So we had lots of setting new expectations, holding people to account, lots and lots of difficult conversations, a very steep learning curve for me. So from being very happy and very, everything's great and the world's rosy, to suddenly seeing the world through a very, very different lens, and realising at that point that I had zero or just slightly greater than zero experience, knowledge and understanding of what was going on and how to fix it. But the store manager was great. He held my hand, he showed me, developed me, supported me, set very clear expectations with me and held me to account to deliver, but did it in a very supportive and collaborative way. And I learned loads through that whole experience, that very difficult kind of 18 months, 2 years. And then by the time I was 20, I was running my own store. So that store manager saw something in me through the support, guidance and help that he gave me, worked with me. I was then able to kind of take that knowledge and experience, take those learnings and become a store manager in my own right. And that was really then my second major learning curve. So at this point, at 20, I was put into my first store. Everyone in that store, apart from the Saturday kids, was still older than me, which I found personally very challenging. So I had a whole mindset thing going on of, oh, I've got to respect my elders, or, you know, who do I think I am to be telling them what to do? And some of them had that view of me as well. The store was underperforming. I'm now the new store manager that's been sent in to fix what's going wrong. And now I'm totally accountable for the delivery and the performance of my standards, my expectations and my results. Whereas previously, as the assistant manager, at least I had the store manager to fall back on. And then I learned, I got things right, I got things wrong. Some things were very, very painful. Some things were really great, and we had some great experiences. And I progressed through several stores then until I got to the biggest store that I wanted to manage. I moved around the country, had loads of great experiences, and then I moved into learning and development. And that's when I had my kind of, I suppose, my third big epiphany was that actually I'd now moved into a learning and development role where I was designing and delivering training for the people that were in the roles that I'd previously been in and that I knew inside out. But I didn't know this role of learning and development. I didn't have the skills or knowledge, and actually I didn't talk the language. So I was in a place of, again, I lacked confidence in my own abilities. I suffered from a bit of low self-esteem at points, and I had a massive learning curve in terms of the things that I needed to learn, understand, and the experiences that I needed to kind of gain. But again, through supportive leadership and supportive people, I got that and spent then the next kind of 10 or 12 years as national L&D manager for Woolies. So I guess, long story short, I've got loads of experience and loads of hands-on, practical, pragmatic experience that for me has made a difference. And equally, when I've worked with and am working with other people, it's been fundamental in helping them build a rapport with me, a relationship with, and with me helping them to be able to kind of move through the challenges that they're facing. So very quickly, my LinkedIn QR code. I'd love to connect with you. So if you're not connected to me already, please feel free to take a scan and let's connect, and hopefully we can stay in touch and chat and maybe grab a virtual coffee. Okay, so very quickly, why leadership development? So for me, it kind of speaks for itself, because when I was that new leader, when I didn't know what I was doing, it was the thing that carried me through, that enabled me to progress, and enabled me, sorry, to feel confident and competent and keep moving forward. So I'm often asked, what is the difference between training and development, or training and development and coaching? And very simply for me, it's about where you are at a moment in time. So training typically for me is about organised activities that are aimed at imparting information or instructions to improve somebody's performance, or attain a level of knowledge or a particular skill. It's usually quite now based. So it's usually about, what can I give, help somebody with right now to help them be better right now. So it might be as simple as, just showing somebody how to log on to a Zoom call, or it might be, how to use a Excel spreadsheet or formula on Excel or something like that, or it might be more complicated. But it's usually about what is the skill or knowledge that somebody needs right now to help them be either do the role that they're doing or be more effective in it. Development typically for me has a future focus. So it's usually a thing that happens over time. It's a series of interventions that might be a combination of on-the-job training, off-the-job training, a combination maybe of coaching, mentoring, workshops, and many, many more things. Those things could be, you know, face-to-face, they could be e-learning, they could be going off and doing something outside of the company. But it's all joined up, and it all has an overarching purpose of enabling somebody to achieve a particular goal. So it's all about growth and learning and supporting a journey of change over a period of time. And coaching is one element of a host of many development things that can enable somebody to do that. So coaching typically is about a relationship between two people where you have the coach who helps the coachee or the person that's being coached to unlock what's getting, you know, what's going on inside them, unlock their thing that's keeping them stuck. Helps them to move forward, helps them to come up with their own solution, and helps them to move forward. So development for me, really important, helping people get from where they are now to where they want to be. It's about improving knowledge, skills and behaviours, increasing confidence, self-esteem, and a whole host of other personal things that kind of are a add-on, a bonus, a knock-on effect of helping people with their knowledge, skills and behaviours. So very often we can experience low confidence or low self-esteem or a lack of self-belief because of our lack of skill or our lack of knowledge, or maybe we're not doing the things we need to be doing in a particular way. And we're impacted by what other people think of us, whether, you know, our own kind of level of judgment on whether we did it well or whether we could have done it more effectively, our own level of perfectionism and so on. So knowledge, skills and behaviours, I kind of touched on this in the previous slide, but for me, knowledge is about giving people the know-how, the information, or telling them how to use the skill. So if you think about it in very practical terms, so maybe a hammer or a drill or a hoover, if you think about the knowledge of a hoover, you know, it's what is it? What does this thing do? What's its purpose? Where's the on switch? Where's the plug? How do you empty it? How do you start it up? What do you use it for? When do you use it for? So it's all that type of thing. The skill is then, well, how do you use the hoover, or how do you use the drill? How do you physically, if it's a drill, how do you drill something into a wall? How do you change a drill bit? What do you need to be aware of in order to use this thing safely and proficiently? And then the behaviours are really about the application of it. So, you know, when and where and how would you use that drill or that hoover? In what way do you use it to be most effective or most efficient or most productive? And exactly the same can be applied to behaviours, to leadership development. So when we're thinking about helping somebody develop their confidence or their influencing or communicate more effectively, or their coaching skills, for example, it's really about breaking it down into what's the knowledge, what are the skills, and what are the behaviours that are applicable to those things that they want to develop in and build up over time. And quite often it's more than one thing. It's a series of things, a series of knowledge, skills and behaviours that build. So again, that development over time is where then the timepiece becomes really important. And it's about leaders themselves. So a leader themselves may want to work on their own performance for themselves for a variety of reasons. It might be for that leader and their direct team, so those that report directly into them, or it might be for a leader and maybe their peer teams, or at a more generic organisational level. So lots of different ways that you can use it. And why is it important? Well, because everything you do as a leader ultimately impacts your business results, your business performance. So we know research shows that everything starts and ends with the leader. It's pivotal to everything. So when you do or say, or don't say, whatever you do in your business, it absolutely influences and impacts on the attitudes of your employees. And their own attitudes impact their own behaviour. So whether they're happy, whether they're motivated, whether they're engaged, whether they understand, whether they're trained, will all impact on their behaviour. So what they do or don't do, and they in turn are the ones that ultimately deliver and drive your business performance. So everything you do, as I say, it all starts and ends with us as leaders in a business. Often when people step up into that leadership role, as I experienced myself, and I have experienced when working with lots of other people, there is an expectation and a need to do something differently within the role that they are moving into, as opposed to the role that they were in. And the more senior you move up into a business, the more further up you go in an organisation, the less it becomes about your technical expertise and your technical knowledge, and more about your ability to motivate, engage, inspire, and lead people. So actually the things that you were very comfortable with, maybe the more task-driven or operational hands-on things, the expertise, maybe the qualifications even that you might have got that brought you into the business, as you move higher up in that organisation or within that business, become less and less important, and it becomes more about how you can work through your team and with your team to deliver those results. So we need to get it right. We absolutely need to be doing the best for ourselves, so that, you know, from a personal perspective, we are the best equipped we can be to be happy and engaged and satisfied and motivated ourselves, but also so that we can help our team to experience those exact same things, and therefore we can positively and successfully impact and drive our own business results. So some things you might see in a business or might have experienced previously would be high sickness and absence, or high staff turnover. So very often when people aren't happy or aren't engaged, you can see it in their behaviours. So you can see it in high staff turnover. People maybe not turning up on a Friday or not coming in on a Monday or whatever reason. People focusing only on the task. Maybe lots of finger pointing or moans and groans, backstabbing, people feeling undervalued and so on. You might see leaders coping with overwhelm, working long hours, not taking breaks, always being on a call, or always on call rather, and people just generally not working together. You might experience or have seen people like this. So you might have got autocratic leaders. So those people that are talking about, you know, it's my way, only my way's right, it's my way or the highway. They might be very controlling and dominating, and might be leading and managing, getting things done through punishments and threats and that kind of stick approach. You might see, or you might be, and I know I certainly was at times, a too busy leader. So I was overwhelmed. There was not enough time to do the day job. I tried to do it all. I micromanaged. I didn't delegate. There was lots of poor communication. And I've also been the don't know how to manager. So I don't know how to stop working all these hours. I don't know how to get my work-life balance right. I don't know how to do the job that I've just been appointed to, because it's so different from the one that I had. I'm newly promoted. I've lost my confidence. I just don't know where to start. I don't know where I'm needing to be. And you know, equally, I'm a one-man band. I've never led people before. I want to develop my people skills, my leadership skills, my management skills, so that I can be the best manager, the best leader that I can be. So what do I see? I've worked with lots of people. As I say, I've worked with leaders in larger organisations. I've worked with people in smaller businesses, and the themes are consistently the same. So I often see a bit of this going on. So just hands up, are you guilty of this yourself, or have you experienced your own line managers doing this type of thing? So burying your head in the sand, because you are that hands-on, focused on doing a good job, being seen to be doing a good job, being seen to deliver, that you just keep doing what you're doing. You just keep on that treadmill of working and growing and keeping doing the same things over and over and over and repeating and trying to get a different result by doing the same thing. We often do it, and sometimes we can get ourselves so busy by staying on this hamster wheel, this treadmill of repetitive behavior, by staying in the comfort zone of what we know, even though we know it's not good for us, that it's very difficult to stop, take stock, and think about what we can be doing differently. So my experience of working with new leaders, the three things that typically hampers their performance are a lack of clarity and staying in the comfort zone. So people don't know generally what the new role looks like in real terms. And that might be for a number of reasons. It might be because they are not exposed to the people that are doing that job already, or maybe that role doesn't exist or hasn't existed previously in the business. And they are quite happy to stay in our comfort zone. So when we aren't sure, or when we are overly stressed, or overwhelmed and frustrated, we tend to revert back to what we know, what we're comfortable with, and our comfort zone is the place we kind of like to hang out in. So that might have been comfort zone with what we were doing in our previous job. It might be comfort zone about, well, I'll just not ask, or I'll just, keep my head below the parapet, because it's uncomfortable to kind of put my hand up and ask. But I'll keep doing what I was doing, and I'll get through this period. And there's also, alongside of that, kind of maybe an underlying fear for some people about being found out. So, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing here, but I don't really want to ask about that. And if I do ask, then maybe they'll think that I shouldn't have been appointed in the first place, and then I'll get found out because I really don't think I should have been appointed, maybe. And then what do I do? So maybe the boss, or those higher up in the organisation will lose faith in me. I also see a lack of trust, and that's a lack of trust in leaders themselves, so in their own ability, often underpinned by some of the head noise, the mind chatter that goes on from number one, and also a lack of trust in their team. So maybe I've never led a team before. Maybe some people in the team are perhaps more difficult, or perceived to be more difficult than I feel comfortable dealing with. Maybe I've listened to stories from other people in the organisation about my team or the business that I've just moved into, and maybe I'm listening to that too much. But often a lack of trust translates into micromanagement. So because I either don't trust myself, or I don't trust those that I work with or work for me, I tend to check in too often. I tend to not delegate, or not want to delegate, or believe that actually it might be quicker to do it myself. It might be more effective if I just did it myself. And that in itself leads to a whole host of challenges for us as leaders, but also for the team in terms of their own development and forward movement, but equally their feelings of being involved and trusted, and us valuing their experience and being part of. And then the other thing that I often see new leaders not doing effectively is not communicating well. So a lack of clear communication, and that is at all levels really. So it's from things like setting effective expectations to start with, from being able to hold one-to-ones and do check-ins with people to see how they're getting on and how they're feeling, and to be able to delegate effectively, and then to be able to hold people account for delivery, and to celebrate their success, but also to challenge them when maybe they're not delivering. And that then leads to a few things. So it leads, on the leader side, it leads to, again, it supports my lack of trust in people. It supports an overwhelm, or a continued working around overload and overwhelm. So I tend to take on more things myself. I tend, because if I feel that my team, or ask them to do something and they don't do it, I'm going to continue then to maybe take it off them or do it myself, which means that I just end up with more on my plate. So it fuels my lack of overwhelm, my feeling of not being able to manage my own time effectively, maybe, my frustration because the team aren't doing what I want them to do. I'm always doing everything. And equally, everybody becomes demotivated, deflated, and it ultimately cycles back to point one. So all of these things are very interrelated, and almost, if we don't kind of break that chain, perpetuate each other. So what can we do about it? So the first one, with a lack of clarity and the comfort zone, I think that it sounds most obvious, but for me, it's about asking. So asking and being really clear on, what is it that this job is? What does it look like in practical terms on a daily, weekly basis? What does it look like when it's being done well? What are the expectations of my line manager, of the people in the team, of those that are already doing the job? So how can we utilise what is already there to help us get clarity? Now, when I got my first job as an assistant manager, that role hadn't existed in that store previously. So there was no person that I could observe. There was no person that I could go to and say, so actually, what is it that you do on a daily basis? I see you doing all these things, but actually, what is it that you do, and how do you know when you're doing those things well? I had to get clarity from my store manager, so the new store manager that came in, and we had to do these things. We had to look at the job description. So what was that job description saying, and bring it to life. So really explore, what does that look like? So when you come in first thing in the morning to when you go home at night, what does it look like, and how do you do it, and what does it look like in real terms? We set clear objectives. So together we were very clear on, you know, for that year, but then broken down into milestones within that. What were the things that I was responsible for delivering, and very worked very closely with my line manager, my store manager, Ben, to help me get that. Now, there was a lot of times when I had that stuff in my head, but I, in reality, didn't actually know what it looked like in reality. So it's that there's a common, I suppose, a translation that we need to make between that knowledge, that understanding of, okay, so I know what it says in paper and I intellectually get this, but then how do I translate that into behaviours and the things that I do and say, or don't do and don't say every day when I'm working with my team? And actually, how is that different from what I was doing before? Because if I know how it's different, I'm going to be much more aware of when I'm moving or stepping back into my comfort zone and what my comfort zone actually is. So being really clear on your strengths and identifying your knowledge, skills and behaviours gaps is also very helpful here. So what are the things that you do well? You know, are you a good listener? Are you a good rapport builder? Can you notice, have you got great empathy? Can you notice when maybe one of your team needs a bit more support? And can you go and actively, proactively have those conversations? Where are your knowledge, skills and behaviour gaps? Are they around technical knowledge of, technical, tangible, day-to-day things, or are they more around behaviours and perhaps mindsets? So, you know, are you saying things to yourself that maybe aren't helpful? Are you saying things to yourself that you absolutely would never say to other people? And is that not supporting you? And then where do you want to be? So going back to that job description, you know, what does good look like in terms of the knowledge and skills and behaviour gaps that you have? And then you can work to access the relevant training and development for that role based on the gaps that you have. So where are you now and where do you need to be? And it's also thinking about how you can leverage those strengths really effectively. So one of the things that will support you and help you with your development gaps is leveraging those strengths. So how can you use those strengths more effectively, more efficiently, differently, to enable you to address those knowledge, skills and behaviour gaps that you have. So being really clear on what is the training and the development for the role that I need, and having an opinion yourself about what that is, but also seeking that out from relevant people within the business, whether that's your line manager, from people that are doing the job already, from the training department, learning department if you have one, and so on. Seeking feedback is really key, and it's something that I find leaders don't do enough, either because they're uncomfortable with actually asking for it, or they don't know how to ask for it, or again it links back to that mindset perhaps of, well, if I ask for feedback and I get told that I'm not doing a very good job, then maybe I'm not doing a very good job and I'll get found out. So lots of different reasons as to why we don't do it, but actually feedback is really valuable in helping address if you've got negative mind chatter and you know, some unhelpful beliefs going on. Really useful to give you a starting point or a reference point about where to move to. So how are you doing? What's working? What's not? How could you be more effective? How are you already delivering a great job? And the more we get into the habit of seeking feedback, the easier it becomes, the more we develop our own skill and then being able to return that favour to others. So to be able to give feedback openly and freely to other people with the intent of helping them to grow and develop and ultimately to help drive our and shape our business performance. Find a mentor and a confidant. So somebody that you can confidentially talk to, ask questions of, express your fears if you haven't have any. Celebrate your successes if you know, and when you have those, and somebody that you can learn from. Having a mentor is a very, very useful way of developing. It helps very often if that mentor isn't your line manager, so your line manager will be very useful as the person that you can go to and get feedback from and build a great relationship with, and should be very supportive of you in that. But a mentor has a slightly different relationship, equally supportive, equally challenging, but because they don't directly line manage you, it can have a slightly different feeling to it, and is sometimes a place where people feel more comfortable to go if they do have questions and queries or concerns before they then go with those to their line manager. Learning to step outside your comfort zone is key. So how to get comfortable with uncomfortableness, I guess. So recognizing what your comfort zone is and where you are defaulting to when you're under stress or when you're under pressure is very useful, because the more you recognize when you're in your comfort zone, the more you'll be able to step outside of your comfort zone. And we know that growth only comes when you put one foot outside, when you put one toe over your comfort zone. And gradually, as you do more of that, your comfort zone will expand and grow with you. So you'll become comfortable with more things and have a bigger repertoire of tools and styles and things in your kit bag that feel more like you, feel more comfortable, and therefore you're more able to draw upon under different circumstances or different scenarios. And recognise where you go to under stress. So I mentioned earlier that when we are under stress, or when we're overwhelmed, when we're under pressure, we quite often default to our habits or our old habits or our old comfort zones. And particularly when you step into a new role, this can be something that is quite easy to do, particularly if you're not clear on what the role is that you're actually supposed to be doing and what it looks like in very pragmatic and practical day-to-day terms. So I'm not really sure about what I'm supposed to be doing. I'll just go back to doing what I am comfortable with and doing it in the way that I used to do it, or how I used to do. And when this happens, I quite often experience leaders that are then working in the new role under the old habits and behaviours that they were delivering in their old role. And that, if left unchecked, can over time then lead to them struggling or being viewed by the line management, if they're not having those regular conversations and being honest, as potentially underperforming. So it's a very fine line at that kind of that point. So get comfortable asking for help and support. Putting your hand up and saying, I have a question about, can you just go over this again? Can we have a meeting about, from whoever is the most appropriate person or people to help you with that is key. And actually, one of the things that will help with is making you or helping you be seen as a vulnerable leader, which is actually quite a good thing. So if you're asking for help and support, your team will feel more comfortable asking you for help and support. It demonstrates that you don't need or have to know everything. It encourages a collaborative approach. It encourages a more relational approach, and also puts less pressure on you to have all the answers. So can help address the mind chatter and maybe some of the negative connotations around, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm going to get found out. The second thing, then, lack of trust, which for me leads to micromanagement. How do you address that? Well, I suppose think about yourself, or maybe when you've witnessed this in other people. How familiar is this? So you ask somebody to do a job and they don't do it straight away, or when they do it, it's not done in exactly the way that you wanted it to be done. So you might keep checking in. Have you done it yet? When are you going to have that done by? Can you let me know when you've done it that? Or you might be interfering in how they're doing it. You might have said to them, yeah, that's your job, you can go away and do that and let me know when it's done. But then you're checking in every 5 minutes, every half hour, every couple of hours. How are you doing it? And have you just phoned so and so? And have you done that bit of the task yet. So you're over checking, you're overthinking, and then eventually, for whatever reason, it might not get done, or it doesn't get done, as I say, in the way that you want it. And then you start thinking, well, it might have been just quicker if I did it myself. So next time I'll just do it myself. Or next time, instead of telling them that, I'm delegating it to them, I'll just tell them exactly what I want it done and how I want it done and when I want it done by. So if you notice yourself saying, I think I've got to check up on my team, I need to check, they don't think for themselves. It's just quicker for me to do it. Nobody can do it like I do it. Then you're probably micromanaging. And that could be for a variety of reasons. So really think about, why am I doing it? First of all, am I doing it? And then why am I doing it? So reflection, taking a step back, taking time out, taking time to breathe and really consider, what am I doing? How am I doing it? What's my purpose? What's it going to achieve for me? And understand why. So is it because you don't trust yourself enough? You don't maybe understand what you're supposed to be doing on a day-to-day basis. So because you're unsure of what you're supposed to be doing, you want to overcompensate and make sure everybody else is. Maybe you don't know your team well enough. Maybe you don't have that relationship with them yet. So you don't know what they are capable of, what their experience is. So you feel that you've got to keep checking in. Maybe you're a control freak anyway. Maybe you just like to have high control. Maybe you don't understand the team. Maybe you don't understand what it is that the team is doing. So you feel you have to be there. Maybe there's a risk. If this task doesn't happen or doesn't happen in a particular way, maybe there's a risk to the team or to safety or to the business. But understand the impact of micromanaging and not trusting as well. There's a huge relationship issue between a feeling of being valued, of being trusted, of engagement and motivation in team members if we don't demonstrate trust. So again, as in the first example, setting clear expectations, having very clear and high standards and measures in place will help with this. So if you know what the expectations are for a particular job or a task, and the standard that needs to be delivered to and how the success of it will be measured, and you can communicate that effectively, then as long as you know that those individuals that you're talking to have the relevant training and knowledge and experience, so again, you're going to need to talk to them and find that out, then you're much more likely to get the job delivered in the way that you want it to. And how do you do that? Well, how do you know what your team's got? You've got to talk to them. You've got to build those relationships. You've got to find out what experience that they have. How long have they been in the business? How long have they done this thing for? Who knows what? Who does what? What's gone right? What's gone wrong? What have they tried before? What has worked before? What didn't work in the past and for what reasons? And take all that knowledge and work with it. And consider those that are new. So new to the business or new to that role or new to that task. And make allowances for the training, the support, the information, knowledge, skills, behaviour, etc., that they might need up front to enable you to then be able to trust them a little bit further down the line to get on and just do that job. Hold regular team meetings and regular one-to-ones. So make sure that you are constantly communicating with your team, talking to them about what you want, what it looks like, getting their view, getting their input, understanding their hopes, their fears, their expectations, their ideas, their experiences from their time in that team or in that business, and speak to them. Think about how to delegate from your own perspective. Speak to them about being delegated to. Understand, you know, their aspirations. So do they want to learn how to do this thing? Do they want further responsibility? Are they open for taking on more responsibility? In which case you can use delegation as a tool to absolutely help people grow, develop, and move forward. And through that, also then brush up on your own time management skills. So the more you delegate, the more you talk to your team, the more trust and the more trust you give to that team, the more it will impact positively in the time it gives you back. So with that, you need to be able to plan more effectively. So make sure your planning and your planning skills are maxed out. Find out, learn, develop those skills more effectively. And equally, make sure you're taking regular breaks. So when we're overwhelmed, when we're doing things, when we feel like there isn't enough time, which is often an output of micromanagement, there isn't enough time to do everything in the day because we're just doing everything ourselves. You need to make sure that you do take regular breaks to give yourself that headspace, that thinking space, and make sure that your team do the same. Because when we're heads down and arses up, we can't think straight, we can't work effectively, and things just don't get done. So lack of communication or clear communication then. So this is the third thing that I often see, and it's so closely linked to the other two. Set clear goals and objectives for your team that are aligned to your own, but also to the business. If you know what you're supposed to be doing, know how your team will support you at an individual and a team level to achieve the goals of your department or your function and ultimately the business. So having a clear goal setting procedure in place is key. As I've already mentioned, having regular one-to-ones with your team to check progress, recognise success, to support them, to be their cheerleader, but also to challenge them and help them grow and stretch and develop is really important. And the more one-to-ones you have, the more relationship and closer relationship you're going to build with that individual and your team. For me, when I'm leading teams, I always tend to have two types of one-to-one. So there might be a weekly or fortnightly task-focused, objective-focused one-to-one. So checking in on what have we done, where are we up to, are the deadlines going to be met, do we need any support or help, do they need anything from me in order to deliver this, you know, where are we at, what's the kind of the status. And then there's a separate one-to-one which is about them. So it's a personal one-to-one which is more about how you feeling, how you doing, what's going on for you in you know your world, how can I support you, what's working and not in the way that we work together. Aspirationally, how is what you're doing in the day job helping you, supporting you with your overarching or future development goals for yourself. What do you want more of, less of? And we can have then a very open and honest conversation about where they're at. I understand them more, they understand me more, and hopefully we can work together so that within the jobs and the roles and the tasks that they do as part of their job, we can also then build in those personal aspirations and have the two kind of working hand in hand to help them move forward. Regular team meetings will communicate updates either from a business, a team, a function perspective. Keep the business on track, keep individuals on track, keep the team on track. But also it will engender a team spirit. It will enable people to feel part of a bigger something, a bigger entity, and to understand and buy into you know, team core values, business core values, agreed ways of working, and be very much part of how those things are shaped. We also need to be able to hold people to account. for non-delivery. So when we set expectations and goals and objectives, we should ideally be setting timescales to them. So, you know, what are the milestones and key timeframes within those things, those goals, those objectives need to be delivered. And through the one-to-ones, you can keep checking in with people and see where we're at and get a sense of, are we on time, are we on track, or are we not? Do the goals or the objectives need to be repositioned or realigned from a time perspective, or actually is it about something else that might be about the individual, or it might be about the objective or the way that we are delivering or not. And being able to hold people to account in a non-aggressive but a relational and assertive way is key. So people know that actually I am expected to deliver. I'm expected to deliver a set of results and a set of goals and a set of objectives and work in a particular way to a certain standard. But if I need support, if I make a mistake, if I need help, it's absolutely okay to put my hand up and go and ask for that. And you know, it's very non-threatening. And it's okay. It's okay to get things wrong. It's okay to not know. It's okay to need help and support, as long as I'm doing everything that I am supposed to be doing. And as a line manager, as a leader, it's being comfortable with being able to do that. So learning the skills necessary to have those conversations in the appropriate way, in a way that builds rapport, builds relationships and trust between you and your team, or your individuals in your team, and still gets the job done. But ultimately, you know, there will always be times when for whatever reason things don't work out and we need to take action or disciplinary action perhaps with a particular individual, and it's being prepared to do that as well and knowing how to. So being brave and having difficult conversations, and for me, conversations that make a difference. So those conversations that count are the things that will really help. Seeking support from the experts. So if you've got a HR team in your business, then, you know, seeking their advice, going to your own line manager, going to other people that might be in your business that can offer support and guidance. Particularly when there are things that require a level of expertise that maybe isn't required in your role, or maybe it's about legislation that keeps changing that, you know, again, isn't part of your role, but will be required in a perhaps a conversation that you need to have with somebody. So make sure you're seeking guidance and you're working collaboratively with those people that will be around you and alongside you. And then have relevant people processes in place. So very often we will have processes in place in a business that will help us with our marketing, or will help us with our understanding our finances, or will help us with our day-to-day task-driven focuses. Having people processes in place is key for me to being a great leader. So things, as I say, like setting objectives, reviewing those objectives, having regular one-to-ones, having team meetings, having appraisals, all those sorts of things are people processes, or part of a whole host of people processes that will enable you to manage and lead your people very effectively, and build it into just how you do things around here. So just how you go about doing what you're doing day to day and week to week, as opposed to it being something that is maybe perceived to be hard or difficult, or something in addition to the day job. Interacting with people, motivating them, inspiring them, communicating with them, engaging them is all part of a leader's role. And having those processes in place, as I say, will enable you to deliver those well and effectively. And then really importantly, celebrate success from your own perspective. So being able to say to yourself, yeah, I did a good job there. I did that well. Or maybe that didn't go as I expected it to, or as well as I wanted it to, but what did I do well? And equally, what would I do differently next time? But being able to do that for the individuals in your team and your team, your business is key to motivation, to helping people grow and stretch and develop, and being able to reward and recognize those achievements. And all of that will help you have a happier team and obviously be much happier yourself and much more satisfied and engaged for everybody all around. So I think for me, the key to those kind of three things is that recognizing that behavior is a choice. We all need to understand ourselves first before we can start to understand and lead others. So what are the things, what are our values, our beliefs, our motivators, our fears, our skills? What are the things that we do well? What are the things that maybe we don't do so well? What triggers us? What causes us to move into stress? How do we react under stress and pressure? How do we appear on our best day? On the day when everything's going well and we're in flow, how do we come across on our best day? What gets the best out of us? And equally on our worst day, when we're at our lowest, when we're maybe, doing things that we're not most happy with, and maybe we don't really want others to see in us. What are we doing? What does it look like? How do people experience us? Because when you know that, when you can understand all of that, then you can start to do something about it and choose to consciously do something about it, as opposed to being held to ransom by our emotions and our habitual behaviours. Then really importantly for me, it's about knowing your purpose for wanting to develop. So being really clear about what is it that you want to do this for? What ultimately is it going to help you to do? And then what's the impact of not doing it, of not having it? Developing your emotional intelligence and stress management techniques, as well as the things that I've mentioned previously, will also help you be a more effective leader and constantly getting feedback. So seeking feedback, actively seeking it out, asking for it purposefully, and encouraging people, whether they work for you, alongside you, or you work for them, to give you that feedback. And as I've just mentioned, put relevant people processes in place. So put in place the things that will help you be and support you to be a great leader. Okay, so that's my nuggets of wisdom. I would love to book a 30-minute discovery call with you. So I'm very happy to have a chat, have a 30-minute chat free of charge, just to talk through some of your leadership challenges. So the link on the screen there is my Calendly link. Book in 30 minutes with me and we can have a chat and find out a little bit about you and how you might want to work on things that are maybe keeping you stuck, or things that aspirationally you are looking to achieve. And then also, if you're interested, I would like to talk to you, very much happy to talk to you about my leadership laboratory. So I have worked with several people through this programme. It's a 6-month programme combined of powerful leadership assessments. So that starting point of knowing yourself, knowing you, and what motivates you, what your strengths are, what your development gaps are, how you react under stress and pressure. That leadership assessment or assessment tools will really help you understand that as your starting point. And then through that, we can work with you to help you understand what your personal development plan and your priorities are to work through and identify and address first of all. As part of the programme, you get 6 one-to-one coaching sessions with me. So that's 6 2-hour sessions, really focusing on you and helping you to address the mindset or the behaviour or the beliefs to be the best leader that you can be. You get 6 3-hour content modules, which you can see on the screen there. So you start off with the assessment, then we move on to a module around knowing yourself. So really getting underneath, what does knowing myself mean? What is it like to work with me, to work alongside me, and to work for me? Why, excuse me, why is leadership really important to me in the role that I'm doing? Then we have a look at and build on vision, purpose, and strategic goals. So, what is my vision for my team or the business, if it's my business? What's the purpose? What are we here to do? What am I here to do? And then what are our strategic goals, and how through having those kind of goals in place can we align what everybody else does in the organisation to delivering those business results. Then we've got a module on conversations that make a difference. So what are the skills, the techniques, the things that you can do to be brave and have those conversations that make a difference, to have those conversations that will help somebody become unblocked or help stretch somebody and grow somebody and develop them? What are the key skills that you can learn? How can you apply all of those skills to different types of conversations so that you can really make a difference in the conversations that you have? Then we've got a module on managing your team, so understanding what great or what team dynamics are and what a great team looks like, and how you can set your team up and work with your team to set them up for success. We've got a module on making sound decisions, so that's really about kind of strategic judgment and problem solving, and some tools and techniques to help you get better, develop your skills in that area. And then we've got a module on kind of pulling that all together. So by the end of those modules, you will have worked through very real and practical examples that are relevant to your own workplace. So it's a very pragmatic program, and the pulling it all together is really your action plan. So you will have put things into place at each of the stages of the modules, but this is really about what's my plan going forward. How am I going to take all of these things now that I've got the whole piece, and how am I going to make it work for me and my team in very real and practical, pragmatic terms on a day-to-day, week-to-week, year-to-year basis. And then I also, as part of the whole programme, give you 10 e-learning courses from my range of e-learning. So these are all fully approved, accredited courses from my range, and I would encourage you to select, so you can choose which ones you have. I've got over 100, but I would encourage you to select the ones that are appropriate to the development areas that you've identified from either the content sessions or from the leadership assessments that we do. So if you'd like to find out more about that programme, I've got 6 places available starting from December 22, and yeah, you can talk to me about how you get involved in starting that. So that's it. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, as I say, please do book a call. I'll just go back to the slide. Book a 30-minute discovery call with me. I'd love to talk to you. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, and look forward to speaking to you. Thanks very much for listening. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to speak to you soon. Bye for now.